Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Soldiers of Cinema podcast. I'm Cullen and joined once again by Clark Coffee. And today we're talking about Lesson 8 in the Werner Herzog Masterclass. This one's all about leading the platoon and, being a leader on set as a director, or even, as a producer. This is kind of universal kind of instruction for what you can do on a film set to make things run more smoothly. And just to jump right into it, really, I think that, Clark, you and I kind of have, I think you would agree with me when I say this, that a really great, or something that would put you to an advantage on a film set is to learn really every facet of what goes on. And you and I both,
absolutely
have experience acting, right? And I think
extremely helpful. Yeah,
just on a specific level there, like one of the biggest piece of advice I can give to anybody who wants to direct is take a few acting classes.
Well,
you just learn how to communicate those things so much better.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's great advice. And, Herzog does, mention in this lesson the importance of understanding at least a little bit. I don't think you're working to be an expert in every single aspect of filmmaking. Mm-hmm. I don't know that that's practical, but certainly having a working knowledge of every aspect of filmmaking. And so, getting a chance to, operate your own camera, lighting your own, at some point in your learning process. And certainly working with actors that is such a vital area. And it's one I see especially in directors just starting out, that's likely that's one of the more challenging areas for newer directors. But frankly, I hear stories even from well-established directors with quite a bit of experience that it challenges at all levels. And absolutely, studying acting for a period of time, working in a room with actors in a class, I would say, 6 months or so. I would give it actually a decent amount of time.
Yeah.
That's not going to turn you into a great actor studying it for only that period of time. But what it will do is certainly open up your mind and your heart to what the actor's process is, what they go through, because it's a hell of a challenging job on set. So absolutely.
It'll just arm you with the knowledge to be able to communicate effectively with them too.
No question.
That's a huge part of it. I've had experiences on sets where the directors clearly don't have that.
Oh God, me
that
too.
knowledge, and it's like,
oh, it's horrible.
And I luckily, some instances I have been acting, but some instances I've been doing whether that's DP work or just camera work or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those things where you're kind of standing there like, no, just talk to them. Don't, people just don't know how to, and not to be very frank and not to, put anyone down, but people sometimes just don't know how to direct actors in that way or in a efficient way.
Well, it's not automatic. Yeah. I mean, it's none of us are born, with this innate knowledge. And so, I think, and we're going to touch on quite a bit more of this, but being the director on set requires a tremendous amount from someone. And part of that is that, you're going to have to know a little bit about every single position. And, and I think, acting is such a delicate, art, frankly. And, one of the director's biggest, challenges is to create a conducive environment for actors to really be able to do their work and do it well. And absolutely, understanding what that's like to be on that side of the fence will not only help you communicate better with them, and every actor is going to have a slightly different way of needing to be communicated with them, and you're going to see that if you study acting for a while. But creating a set that's conducive for good performance is just it's obviously one of the vital aspects of directing. So I couldn't agree more. But I would extend that even further. It's edit some of your own work, and most of us now in this day and age. That's one of the great things about where we're all at with the technology of filmmaking is that you're likely not only are you going to get a chance to do this stuff, but you're probably going to have to do some of this stuff on all these things on your first few films, right? I never set out wanting to be an editor, but hey, who was going to edit those first half a dozen short films that I did? It's going to be me. But it really did teach me a lot.
I talk all the time about with my students, and I say, like, you should, not only is learning to edit good for, being able to edit your own shorts and things like that, But it's also super important to learn how to think like an editor when you're directing,
Yes.
and to kind of be
Yes.
on set and go, oh, you know what, we need to pick up an insert of,
Yeah.
a hand on that doorknob over there because that shot's not going to cut with that shot. And kind
Yeah.
of just being able to have those moments on set and to be able to, work around that and kind of think about this master playlist of like shot to shot, what is going on. And it's actually kind of funny because I know that a producer will often say that, what I want to do is make sure that the director doesn't have to think about 7 scenes down the line or 6 scenes down the line. I want to make sure that their job is as simple as possible so they can think about
Mm.
the scene that they're on. And that's
Mm.
great. And that's hugely advantageous for any director. But at the same time, that's more logistical stuff. Whereas as a director, you should be thinking about the whole movie creatively.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You should constantly have what the last scene, what the last shot, what the last 10 minutes of the movie were, prior to this moment, especially, as most movies are not shot consecutively.
Right.
You've got to really get a grasp of that kind of idea of like what's coming before this and what's coming after this.
Well, and
There's the joke. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh yeah, no, please go ahead. Hey, you're telling a joke, man. I want to hear this.
It's not a very funny joke, but it's
Oh.
like an old, not old either, but there's the old kind of thing that a bunch of people who have worked with James Cameron always say, that he can do any job on the set better than the people that are doing them, and whether or not that's actually true is,
Right,
who knows.
right,
But I
right.
think that the message there is clear that, again, like you said, as a director, you should have a knowledge of what every department is doing, not an expertise, because as you said, I don't think
But
that's
a working
attainable,
knowledge.
but yeah, exactly. You should
Well,
be
and
able to go to the lighting crew and have a conversation with them about what's going on, costumes, and just,
Yeah.
be aware of everything going on the set.
And I want to just say too, I think editing isn't, they're all of course vital, but editing is so fundamental. I mean, editing is what makes film.
Yeah.
And I just want to add a little bit more to what you said, was that it's not only about being able to think in what's come before and what's come after, but you can really tell when you've spent time editing, you start to understand the rhythm of scenes. Editing is really going, like when you really have to sit down and you have to massage these moving pictures into scenes and into, of course, a final film. I think you get a much more visceral grasp of rhythm and of how a scene moves from one to the next. You'll start to pay attention to being able to shoot where it gives you the option to cut on action or movement. Just all these little things that are almost even hard to articulate necessarily, but that add up to a rhythmically satisfying film.
Yes.
And editing can really help you see how that's actually done. And it's not to say that you're going to be, and ideally, I think, a director shouldn't be editing their films, but the director obviously is working, right there side by side with the
in the
editor.
editing suite with
Yeah.
and knowing what the decisions that are being made are like why they're being made. And I mean, as many people say, editing is really the last writing phase of a movie.
Absolutely.
Also-
and it's
I
so
mean-
easy, right? I mean, just logistically, I mean, there are many software options that are not very expensive.
Or even free.
Do you just, not to get like too into the nuts and bolts here, but do you use DaVinci?
I do. I have the full version though.
But isn't there still, like, it's limited to like 1080p, but do they still have kind of the free edition of that?
Yeah, the free version still exists.
So there you go.
I believe limited to. I never used it. I only ever had the full version. But,
Right.
But yeah, I think it's limited to 1080 or something. But yeah, exactly.
It's free.
full NLE that is a industry standard really for
Premiere,
color rating. But
Premiere
and
Pro
Premiere,
is I don't know how much it is now. I've got the entire suite of Adobe products, and I think it's somewhere in the realm of, like, I don't know how much it is. I think I don't even want to say. It's not outrageous, and they may give sometimes a free month here and there, but you only have to pay for it for the period of time you're using it.
Yeah.
And relatively speaking, it's ridiculously cheap for the power that you get from it. And there's so many tutorials too on YouTube that are totally free. Tutorials on all these software, whether it's DaVinci or Premiere, or I don't know how many people are using Final Cut anymore, but it's very available to almost anybody. So highly recommend that.
And
Yeah, and
tutorials are all over the place online. You don't need to go in
yeah,
and take a class. You can just literally look it up and watch a few YouTube videos
and
really to learn the
they've
basics.
gotten quite a bit more user friendly. I mean,
Yeah.
maybe I don't know. It's hard for me to judge. I've been using them for quite a while. They seem mostly. Sometimes there's some quirks that are really wackadoodle that have me scratching my head. But I mean, for the most part,
Yeah. Avid, no, but
yeah. Well, Avid is the one that I don't have as much experience with.
yeah, Avid I don't think will ever be user friendly though. I
Yeah.
think that's their shtick.
Yeah, you're right. Right. It's like they have to keep that bar, that barrier to entry high,
Yeah.
so that it's extra special. I was curious. I want to touch on something else. I want to go back just a little bit because it's extremely interesting to me personally and my experience as a director. So you talked about how you had taken acting classes, and how that was like right off the bat. You were like, I highly recommend you do this. So obviously that had an impact on you. Can you maybe share with our listeners? Was there anything in particular you remember that kind of stood out? Something that you really were able to take from those classes
I
and
mean,
use on set as a director?
I think we briefly touched on this before, but I've been doing acting for my whole life, like since I
Yeah.
was a child, and then I went to a high school with this, that specialization. So I was taking acting classes literally every day for 4 years
Oh
straight.
wow.
Um,
I didn't know
and
that. Yeah.
and so I did a lot of stage performances and things like that, but very different type of acting than film acting. But
For sure.
there are carryovers, but
Yeah.
but I think that the biggest takeaway for me was just just that communication of like being able to, if I'm an actor and I'm doing something that the director doesn't particularly like or isn't really feeling the energy of, being able to know that process and go up to an actor and give them notes that an actor would understand or that can take away, rather than just saying, do
Right.
it more like this. You're able
Do it
to say,
angrier. Be
yeah,
angrier.
exactly.
Be
You
sadder.
can say to an actor, you can just have that conversation in the way that makes it easier for an actor to kind of get where you're coming from. Just say like, take it from a place that you're no longer happy with that character or something like that. Or, this is
Yeah.
very general, of course. You would have more specific notes in a movie, but just being able to have that communication. And it's one of those things that I just notice, and I would never, I'd never cross the line if I wasn't directing something and go, maybe you should tell the actor like this. I just kind of stay silent and judge
Yeah.
from a distance.
Right.
But listening to directors who very clearly don't have that acting experience, try and give those notes, and you just kind of think in the back of your head, like, there's a lot more effective ways of getting
Yeah.
across what they want right now. And I think it's again, it's that it's not even about turning into a really good actor and being a director who can also act out the scenes along your actors. Like, that's not what it's about at
No.
all. I think to me, it's about the ability to just communicate the ideas, and to understand the process that actors usually go through,
And to
create those
empathize.
characters.
And I would say, and to empathize with it.
Yeah,
I want to,
yeah.
like, I countless times, from my career, earlier career, where I was working with much younger directors, like was in a handful of AFI films, AFI students, their films and things, and brilliant people, fantastic school. But I did notice that it would happen often where they would set up, and this is just not understanding any kind of actor process. They would not allow for any time for the actor to do any work before extraordinarily emotional scenes, right? Or they just so even in scheduling a film to have some kind of understanding of the actor's process. I mean, I can't tell you how many times it would be schedule would be set up where, of course, the last shot of the entire shoot is like this, the most amplified emotional climactic scene for the actor, right? And then there's literally no time to do anything. They're like, okay, we've got 15 minutes to do this from 3 different setups, and I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. And just just a total lack of understanding,
Or even
empathy.
starting with that sometimes too. Like when a director's like, okay,
Oh,
first
right,
shot is
sure.
going to be this huge emotional monologue moment or something,
And just
you're
go,
like,
just
Yeah.
go. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, we haven't even met each other. We've, we don't have any kind of rapport. We've not worked, boom. So it's, so not even just a communication, but just an overall empathy and understanding. And that, affects everything from scheduling to the order of setups and shots, and whether you're working from wide to close or maybe vice versa to help save an actor's save their energy,
Yeah.
or help them. It's just so yeah, couldn't recommend it more. But
And I mean, again, just being able to blend all that stuff too. I really like one of my preferred ways of shooting any moment of dialogue isn't just doing over the shoulder and getting coverage of inserts and stuff like that. And Herzog does go over that in his first couple episodes.
yeah,
But rather, I like crafting a really well blocked, almost like a tableau, and having the actors play those scenes out in one scene in
like
one
theater.
full take. Exactly, like
Yeah.
theater. And what that not only does that make a really interesting visual style. I know Bong Joon-ho also really likes that style of just
Yeah.
kind of having a still observational camera look in on a scene.
Mm-hmm.
But it also allows the actors to, and I know there's interviews with like Samuel Jackson talking about this too, where he says, when that is the style of filmmaking, the actors can play off each other. It's not me sitting at a table with a camera in my face,
Oh,
delivering
absolutely.
the lines 16 times over and over again for every
Yeah.
single different angle.
Yeah.
It's us getting a moment and acting out a scene together and just capturing that on. And
Yeah.
that's not to say that you can't do neat things with the camera, because there are so many. Again, I mean, look at Bong Joon-ho. His scenes are directed like that, but I don't think anyone would say that his shots are flat
Or boring, yeah.
or
Right.
or fly on the wall even.
And
They're
it's
just
a great
very,
point.
yeah, they just allow the actors to work, and I think that's where this blending of the whole process comes in, of learning,
Yeah.
just a touch of every single department, where you can go, all right, this is how I'm going to work with the actors, and then I'm going to combine that with the way I'm going to communicate that with the camera department, and kind of say, this is what we're looking at, and you're
Right.
able to bridge that
That's
gap.
such a good point. That's such. I just want to go back for just a second. That's such a great point. It's not even in communication to the actor or conduciveness to performance in how you've constructed the entire set and schedule, but the actual construction of the shots themselves, and being keenly aware of how actors work and how important it is to be able to be in that moment and be with other actors. And as much as possible. I mean, I think this is one of the reasons that Herzog goes to such great lengths that he goes to actually be in the Amazon, to actually be pulling the ship over the mountain, to actually be in the places, to have Christian Bale actually eating the real maggots, is that it's, and because we've seen this in so many films, I think we've talked about this in, other episodes, right? Like where everything is green screen, actors are performing to a tennis ball.
Yeah.
Nothing's real, nothing's there. And it's like you're doing everything imaginable to destroy an actor's ability to give a great performance when you do that.
And that tangibility. Yeah.
And it's, so really, I think until you've been on a stage or been in front of a camera and you're trying to do it yourself, you'll never know exactly what that experience is like. And it's so powerful to have. I would even go so far, I would suggest, it's not, you have theater experience. That's where I started theater. I would actually, even though there are important differences, I would highly recommend to people who are interested in being filmmakers, being directors, to actually do some work in theater.
Yeah.
To actually, I started out acting on stage, and it was an important experience, learning to work with an ensemble, with a group of people, to put together a live performance. First of all, it's just wonderfully fun and a great experience, but then I actually moved to actually directing theater performances. And I actually directed theater well before I ever directed film. And it was such a powerful learning experience. And especially and specifically that aspect of working with actors, because there's such a rehearsal process that you don't get generally when you make film.
Oh, absolutely.
That it's really, really powerful opportunity to hone your craft in communicating and working with actors.
Yeah, I always, if I'm ever doing a movie, I always vow for
some rehearsal time.
For rehearsal time, because it's so vital to me, like just to be able to have the actors flesh. Because again, that's another thing that you kind of learn being an actor, is the amount of times I would be rehearsing scenes over and over again for weeks on end for a stage performance, and then 2.5 weeks in, I'd make some realization about the character or some realization about the scene where it would completely change things for the better.
For sure.
And it's like it took me 2.5 weeks to get there. I can't imagine the opportunities that are missed by just skipping rehearsal processes.
Well,
in
one of
film.
the things, yeah, I mean, one of the things that I try to do, so it's not, you don't always get rehearsal time, and I'm working on a feature film now in pre-production on a horror film that's going to be shot up in Seattle, and we're not going to have rehearsal, and the reason we're not going to have any real rehearsals are because it's just logistically not possible. The budget will not allow it. We'll be hiring people, many people from Los Angeles, and we cannot afford to travel them up to Seattle and room and board them and feed them for rehearsal time. It's just not going to happen. So, but one of the things that I found can be extremely useful, especially when you can't have rehearsal time, is to work with, can be remotely, right? Over the phone or via Zoom now, or in person, is to work with each actor and just kind of get it, and start early. Start as early as you can, and kind of be there with them as they go through their homework. I mean, an actor should be, as soon as they're hired and they've got the script, they should be working, right? They're doing their homework. And different actors will have different ways of doing that homework. But it's so important to be there with them and really be communicating, and and give them a ton of space. Which if you cast them, that means that that should mean that you trust them as an actor. But be there, and you'll start to learn what's their process, what direction are they heading in with their characters, how are they seeing the film, and you can massage your vision as a director, which certainly you should have, into their work so that everybody's on the same page. So even if you can't do a rehearsal, I think it's a really powerful tool to work very closely with your directors with your actors during that homework process.
Yeah. And I think, again, it's one of those things, as you said, so many movies, especially indie flicks, don't really have allowance in the budget for rehearsal. But
yeah,
if you can, I would say always push for it as much as you can, because there's even things like just getting options in rehearsal and kind of, just sitting down in a studio and just kind of saying, okay, let's try this scene, but let's have you come in as though you are really low energy, as though you're tired out, and then you can do the scene like that. And then if that doesn't work, then you can say, okay, let's try it now that you're frustrated, you're coming in, you're high energy, you're already hot-headed, you're coming in, and it's like, it's things like that in theater that you can do so often, that you can do over and over again, because of course 90% of the process of theater is...
You should try TV.
Oh yeah, I've shot TV. I've never acted in TV.
You want to talk about no rehearsal? You want to talk about even further? You should try soaps. Oh man,
yeah,
I've got some fun. It's amazing.
I think I've seen you. I think you showed me some of your. You showed me some of the things that you're on. Yeah,
it is wild how fast you shoot on a soap, and you're like always shooting. I don't even know if it's just extraordinary. But even in regular TV, and just one of the things that actors, to give like a small window into, if you aren't familiar a ton with what actors do, most work for actors actually kind of comes from television. Most paying work comes from television. There's just not as many films shot. There's not as many roles. So commercials or television. But we're talking about legit work, TV. 95% of the time, an actor, when you're cast for a television role, you don't get to do anything. You don't even talk. You pop out of your trailer on set the day of the shoot, and you walk into an action scenario. It's wild, man. I mean, you're not talking to the director. You're not rehearsing nothing. You've hardly met anybody. You've likely hardly met anybody even, it's amazing. I'm talking about, this is like co-star type roles, which are usually what's offered to actors who are kind of starting out. But every actor has to go through this, is my point. Yeah. So, a lot of actors, they have the capability to jump in and run, but certainly being there to help them and work with them is something that they're going to really appreciate. So,
yeah, no, I mean, it's a TV is a different beast, especially live TV.
We can talk about, we can maybe have an episode where we talk. I've got some great stories from all that time on Bold and the Beautiful, man.
I mean, even just down to like lighting, you don't even have time to. It's put up a light and shoot it.
Well, everything is just everything's lit in a generic sense, such that at least for a soap. Obviously, for single camera, I mean, there's some shows are lit with the meticulousness of a feature film,
Yeah.
obviously, of
Yeah.
course, but. And I want to point out something that we kind of missed, but it was, but Herzog actually starts this lesson off with this, and it's a good time to bring it up now because we're talking about. I mean, it can seem overwhelming, right? You've got to know about all these different departments as a filmmaker, and it's a lot. But I am kind of, I don't know how to say this. I'm like, it makes me smile, makes my heart kind of smile to hear that Herzog is still, his first moments on set, he kind of suffers from imposter syndrome,
Yeah.
and he's like a little bit scared and he's thinking to himself, well, he's doubting himself. Can I do this? Is this, am I imposter? What have I done to deserve being here? Am I good
Yeah.
enough to be here? And I mean, seriously, it's like, makes me feel so much better to know that even somebody with as much experience as
Hmm.
Herzog, somebody who seems, so in command of his voice and his vision as an artist, as a filmmaker, still has this happen every time he's on set. The first, that first shot right before that first take. And so, I just, for everybody else out there listening, I mean, even Herzog has these moments of doubt. It's an ongoing process of learning and refining. So it doesn't mean I don't want anybody out there to take from this that, well, before you ever set out to direct your first project, you should spend a decade, studying acting, then studying cinematography, then studying, costuming, then study, no. Get out there and do it right now and start learning. But it's certainly, don't stop learning, and be sure to spend time learning a lot of different departments, a lot of different areas.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I
Exactly.
was I was happy to like, it made me smile when Herzog started off the lesson that way. Personally, I'm like, oh, shoot, it happens to him. Yeah, gosh, geez, it happens to me all the time. I don't know.
Exactly. I mean,
Do you ever get that? Do you ever get imposter syndrome a little bit? Because gosh, I
yeah.
definitely do.
Yeah. No, I mean, of course. I think that was, I mean, one of the most difficult things about the that Hitchcock kind of experiment I did recently was I felt totally just
Yeah.
abysmal after it because
Oh,
I was balancing acting, and it was the first time really on a major thing that I'd balanced acting and directing at once, which I'm
yeah,
never doing again.
yeah.
But
That's
I
challenging,
just
man.
remember feeling like just so inadequate both before and after and during, when it was just like you're trying to, and I mean, I know that, I mean, I've done enough work before that I know that I could direct something, but it
Yeah.
was such a major feeling of dread of just like,
Well,
I can't do this. It was, yeah.
so I just, it's like, I really think there's a great book out there, The Courage to Create, which I highly recommend anybody read. But it's so true that it takes courage to create. Creating is not easy. I don't care what medium you're working in. To kind of bring forth something from your imagination and bring it into the world and realize it is scary. I think it's just kind of part of the human condition. If it's not scary, that might actually even be a problem. You may not have enough skin in the game if it's not scary. You may not, there may not be enough of you in it if you're not at least a little bit afraid. Um, but yeah, it made me feel a little better that he could relate. So
Yeah.
I want to talk too, about moving into what I think is the most important. So we've talked about that a director should have this working knowledge of every aspect of filmmaking, but I want to talk about what I think is even more important than that, and that I think fundamentally defines the role of director, and that is vision.
Hmm. Yeah.
That, I mean, 100%. And Quentin Tarantino, I won't quote him, but I can kind of paraphrase a little bit. I remembered either reading an interview or watching an interview where he, kind of felt overwhelmed by what we've just talked about here. About, oh my gosh, I don't know how to operate camera. I don't know every lens available. I don't know, oh my gosh, it's overwhelming. What kind of light is this? What kind of light is that? Oh geez, film stock. Right. He's
Hmm.
like, I was overwhelmed. But then he came to some realization. I think maybe like another, more elder director talked to him and said, hey, your job is to have the vision and to communicate that vision clearly so that everybody, every other department head understands that vision. And that's your number one job. And if you got that down, that's the most important thing. And I do agree. It's great to have this working knowledge of everything, but I've seen countless times directors on set not either they don't have a clear vision or they can't communicate that clear vision. And I mean, that's what you're there to do. That is literally what you're there to do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, Herzog talks about that, about how important it is to not only have that vision, but then to be able to communicate, and even further, to be able to inspire everybody else on your set with that vision and really be able to light a fire under people and get them on board and excited about that vision,
Yeah, and I've got to say, too, that the times that I've seen film sets fall flat or things not work are when people take direction as like a managerial position and only a managerial position.
Oh,
and
good way
get
to
on
say
set
it.
and
Yeah.
their whole role is, in their eyes, just to kind of sit there and keep the sandcastle up and just kind of look at everyone and go, here's what you have to do, here's what you have to do, but
Yeah.
offer no, which of course is a part of it, but offer no insight into like the actual creative side, or what is the point of this kind of thing, and
100%.
what are we going for right now?
I've been there too. And it's heartbreaking because it takes so much energy to pull a set together, to pull a film project together. It's such a gift to be on set with a team of people, to be making film, and then to have somebody there at the top, our leader, who doesn't have a burning passion and a clear vision, is heartbreaking, man. It's why be, you might as well be an accountant, I mean, great, go be some middle manager in some like accounting firm or something if you just want to manage people that way. My goodness,
Oh, exactly. That's the thing, is it's like, just either you, a lot of times it's like you have one chance on set to get it and to establish kind of the norms of the set, and as Herzog again goes into like these rituals, and a lot
Which I
of
love,
times,
by the way.
as stressful as it is, if you mess those things up, it can really reverberate through the entire production process.
Well, I totally agree. I mean, he even talks about, he goes into this, look, a couple of things real quick. I mean, one, you're not always directing something that you wrote, right?
Yeah.
Now, my goodness, look, if you wrote it and you're directing it and you don't have a clear vision and you're not passionate about it, then I don't even know what I can say to you. I mean, because you wrote the damn thing. So I'm at a loss though.
Too.
Yeah, I'm at a loss though for that. I guess I maybe you shouldn't be here doing this then, frankly, if that's the case. Now, but it's not always the case that you've written it, right? A lot of times you get opportunities. For example, I'm going to have an opportunity to direct something coming up in the future here that I did not write. I closely worked on the some of the story and everything like that and feedback and whatnot, but I didn't write it. I didn't originate this story. But in those cases, you've got to find some kind of hook into it for yourself that's personal, or make one. In this particular instance, I was able to have input early enough in the process to put some of myself into that script, and that helped me kind of find a hook in and find a way for me to understand the story that I could really rally around and get passionate about. And I think you've got to be able to do that, and you just have to work at it till you do. I would never go into a project, especially as a director, if I weren't totally passionate about it. But you can create that. You can work to create that passion.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't know about you too, but and maybe this is a bit of an aside, but I actually prefer directing things that I haven't written.
Okay.
Weirdly enough, I find that.
Can you share Can you share a little bit about what? I'm just curious, just personally. Nobody's listening. Don't worry.
No, I think that I think that the best thing that you can do for yourself as a director or filmmaker in general, whether you're writing and not directing, or whether you're doing both, or whether you're just directing, is get as many eyes on the thing as possible and get as much feedback as you can from other people,
Mm-hmm.
because you're basically exponentially increasing the likelihood that it's going to work with the general audience
Mm.
by going from even just one person working on a story to two people. So what I usually like to do is I like to get a script that's already written by somebody else and then read it as an audience member,
Yeah.
and kind of go through that script as in what I'd like to see in there, and
Okay.
make changes that way,
Yeah.
and kind of go through like that. I mean, I know same with Kubrick. Kubrick was very similar in that he liked to, most of his movies that he made were based off of books, and whether or not they were, totally accurate to the source material is kind of irrelevant. It's more just the fact that he's said in interviews as well that his whole, like, the joy of his creative process was getting something else that was already pre-existing and almost like turning
Right.
it into a movie, as opposed
And
to
making it
starting
his.
from complete scratch.
Well,
Um,
and there's like, there's, for every director out there, there's a different way to work, and
Exactly,
I actually tend to like what you just described as well. I think it's just because I'm not a great writer, or at least I'm not. One of my greatest challenges is creating a script from scratch.
yeah.
It's still very much a challenge for me. It's something I'm working on. But I definitely do have a skill for taking a pre-existing story or script and being able to get as much out of that idea
They had to punch it up,
as
right?
possible,
Yeah.
or to kind of synergize it, to take some other ideas that hadn't made themselves aware to that original writer, and hopefully elevate the script even more. So it's I agree. I kind of am probably in the same boat as you. That's my preferred way to work now. Of course, I would aspire to be, writer director, to actually craft my scripts from scratch. I aspire to do that, but I don't know that that's always necessary. There are definitely great directors out there who've directed either other scripts or adaptations of other people's stories. So no question, there's a lot of ways to go about it.
Yeah. I mean, as you said, I think that's an important part too, is that there are 1,000 different ways to direct and direct effectively. And there are some very famous directors that do write and direct all of their own movies. But there are also some that really, don't, that just kind of are there for the direction part of it. But again, like you said, it's interesting because it's so often for me, it's like there is almost a writing process for me, because there is almost a rewriting of that screenplay and
Right.
turning it into something that I'd like to
Right.
direct from the initial draft.
And in the process, you're developing your passion for it,
Yeah,
right? Just to
exactly,
kind of, it's now, it's never happened to me, but I would imagine it would be the case, though, that there are sometimes you may be hired to direct a project, of course, and you don't get the opportunity, you don't have the option
Yeah,
to
yeah.
to radically or maybe even subtly change the script. And of course, if you're directing television, this is definitely the case every single time, because the directors for television aren't the head honcho.
Yeah,
The
you're
writers,
kind of just coming in for an episode or two.
that you're
really.
just coming in, you're a hired gun for an episode. And of course, television is a writer's medium, so you'll still have to find a way into that, a hook into that for you, and that may take some gymnastics, so to speak, some imagination gymnastics, but usually you can. But let's segue into a little bit more of how would I even say this? Herzog talks about the way he kind of enters into this conversation is by talking about maintaining formality. He talks about when you're working with your cast and crew, at least he said for the vast majority of his career. He said maybe this is changing a little bit now as he's getting older, but he talks about maintaining formality, to be kind, to be polite, to be professional, but to maintain some distance. And he tells a story, I think, about unless he's like been like known somebody for 10 years and gotten drunk and, you know, like all these, and been to prison and everything, you know, not until he's like been through so much does he actually start to like speak, you know, casually with people.
Yes.
I mean, what are your thoughts about this? I'm kind of, you know, torn. I definitely can see the, you know, some of the importance of that, but what are your thoughts on level of casualness or formality with your cast
I
and
mean,
crew?
it's not how I work, I don't think.
Yeah.
I am somebody that at the end of the day would be happy to go get a beer with the cast and the crew and kind of form those relationships there, because I think that's a pretty important way of doing it for me. But I can
Mm-hmm.
also totally empathize with the idea of, you know, even him saying to Nicolas Cage that like, no, 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 we show up on set and then we
Yeah.
talk on set, and other than that, we don't speak, and not even in a rude way, but just in a like, this is how I work my
Right.
process.
Right.
I can understand that, and I think again, it's one of those things that it's like, what works for some people works for some people.
Well, I'm
I
curious.
again, I think that I put more value on the elements of like being able to make everyone comfortable with openly communicating on a set, and you know, and having an actor having a relationship with an actor to the point where they can come up to me and kind of say, hey, I'm not feeling this, or I'm, you know,
Well,
XYZ
certainly would
on
want
certain
that.
things.
Yeah, I
um,
mean, I agree. I think I definitely would not want to reach a place of formality to such extent that an actor or crew member would be afraid
yeah.
of communicating with me. Boy, that would be the exact opposite of what I would want. But I mean, so for you, I'm just curious. Then, I mean, if is there any means with which or sort of ways that you kind of have some sort of divide though, like
Oh
how
yes.
do you maintain your directorial like I'm the director, and yes, this is not, you know, I'm not a dictator or something,
Hmm.
but I am the director, this is my vision. And I mean, if you're too casual or familiar with people, do you find that that becomes a challenge then at all?
I think that it's less about establishing those boundaries and more about the attitude that you go in with. And I think that it's
Okay.
about how, at least in my experience, it's like you can change everyone's perception of you by just the way you talk to them.
Okay.
So if I'm talking to an actor on set, I'm still talking to them with authority, and I'm still giving them
Well, that's
direction.
because you like scream and yell and curse, dude. I
Well, yeah,
mean,
you know
it's
that, but
I mean, of
sometimes they get a little
course.
bit physical too, and um, I sick the dogs on
We're
them.
of course kidding,
But
everyone. We're of course kidding.
but no, like I think that again, it's one of those things where it all comes down to just the way, at least for me. I mean, this
Yeah.
again, it's one of those things that changes person to person. But like if I'm talking to an actor, I have no trouble being in charge while simultaneously being friendly,
It's a
and kind
balance.
of
Sure.
commanding that respect, but also commanding that respect because you earn the respect, not because you're demanding the respect. I think that's a
There's a
big
good distinction.
thing.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think this is what Herzog speaks to, you know,
Yeah.
understanding
Yeah.
every department. That's one way that you earn respect. I That's a great way to put it. I think you're right. I think that you have to earn the respect as a director. If you walk onto a set and you're expecting everybody there to just hand over their respect to you without you having earned it, I think you're in for a much more difficult and less productive shoot than you have to be,
Yeah.
to put it mildly. And you know, I even want to say, you know, maybe speak a little more to that, how important your overall character is. Um, you know, it might seem like it kind of goes without saying, but I think that it happens often that, you know, people forget that characters aren't just the, you know, the people written it, the roles written into a story that you're going to shoot. You know, character is what you bring to set, and your character is vital on set as a director. You
Yeah.
know, it's there is no division. You know, a director is just another word for leader, right? In
Yeah.
effect.
Yeah.
And a leader is absolutely positively, you know, completely holistically connected to every aspect of who you are as a human being.
Hmm.
And I think, you know, we see so many issues with ethical issues, of course, with Me Too movement.
Oh,
And
absolutely. Yeah.
um you know, it's, I don't know if I, and I'm not quite sure what I mean, look, none of us are perfect, of course. I'm not perfect, you're not perfect. I know you think you are sometimes, Cullen, but no. But you know, I mean, nobody listening is perfect. And so,
Yeah.
but it is, you know, how honest are you in your life? How patient are you? How loyal are you? your empathetic ability, your willingness to extend yourself to people, um, those aspects of your personality in your day-to-day life is what you bring to set, and those are the things that are going to either earn or lose your respect with everyone you're working with.
Yeah.
Yes, you're making a film, but this is like somehow not separate from life or anything. I mean, being a leader absolutely involves a high level of integrity, and that's not separate from your day to day life. So I think we've seen a lot of issues where people with very suspect ethics get into some really serious problems
Yeah.
On sets.
Absolutely.
And again, of course, it's not to say that we're all perfect, but I mean, there's just some fundamental things that you should be bringing to set. Honesty and this is a work environment. This isn't a pickup bar, or something like that.
Yeah. No, that stuff is way out
But
of
you
line.
see it. I've seen it.
Oh,
I mean,
totally.
and disrespect for all kinds of things. I've seen really nasty sexist behavior.
And I mean, I'm sure you do too. I have no tolerance for that kind of stuff. Like
and there shouldn't be. There shouldn't be, because it doesn't, and I've heard some people say, "Oh my gosh, look, if you get too PC or this or that, you're gonna totally take away you're gonna make it impossible for people to be creative." And that's just horsepucky, man. It's not true.
Yeah.
If you need to be racist or sexist or whatever else it is in order to be creative, then
that's your problem.
You might need to take a close look at what you are qualifying as creative as being.
Yeah.
I mean, I would hope it would go without saying, but I don't care what level you're directing at. If it's you and three friends, and you're working in your backyard, I mean, just start off pushing yourself to be the kind of leader that you would want to have yourself, and work toward that. And it's an ongoing process that will never end, because we're flawed humans, and that's just the way it is. But at least push yourself to do so. Anyway, to tie that back in, I mean, I think that goes along with earning the respect of your cast and crew.
And there's one conversation that I'll usually have with everyone on set, cast and crew, and that's just more that, I have no problem with being friendly. I have no problem with having casual conversations and having fun.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I'm here to help you do your job, and you're here to help me do mine. And I just that's my expectation, is that at the end of the day, that jobs are done to the degree that we're expected to do our jobs.
And the
that,
way
that that we can have fun, but if that fun starts impeding on anything, or if there becomes such a relaxed attitude that it's getting in the way of work, then we'll have another conversation. And normally I've never had really many issues.
Exactly. And Herzog speaks to this. And how do you avoid that? I mean, it's by doing, right?
Yeah.
Set the example by doing. He gives some examples of being the first, to never ask
some extreme
somebody.
Examples.
Some extreme examples. Like, I don't know that I might feel a little uncomfortable about walking into a minefield myself, but it makes a good analogy, right? A metaphorical minefield. But yeah, of course, in grand Herzog style, he's got one of these great examples, of like...
Well, I mean... That's another way of commanding attention, or not commanding respect too. Is
Absolutely.
Is I've had points where I've been on sets where it's like, and I think that as a director, you should be the first in line to do, and exactly like you said,
you're the first to show up.
There was one case where we had fake blood on the ground. There was some fake blood outside on the ground, and we were like, well, we need to make it look like a body has been dragged through this blood. And I said, all right, somebody drag me through it. So I don't care if I get my clothes dirty.
Do we have some B-roll? Do we have some B-roll of that?
No, unfortunately, I wish we did. But again, it was one of those funny things where I was just kind of like, I'm not going to get somebody else to drag themselves through it. I don't care if my clothes get fake blood on them. So I just kind of lied down on the ground and got them to drag me through it. And I was like, there we go.
And it doesn't even have to be on such grand or physical, but just, being the first to show up, being the last to leave, to behave on set the way you expect other people to behave is so important. I mean, as the director, you are setting the tone for that entire set. and it's you can't ignore it, you can't skate by it. You are absolutely, as the director, going to set the entire tone for how people are behaving on that set. And I mean, I guess that's why it's so important to bring the absolute best of who you are onto set every day, because as the leader, guess what? This is the job that you've asked for, and that's a big part of it. And so if you're not present, if you're showing up late, if you're not well rested and, goofing off, guess what other people are going to be doing? They're gonna live only up to the example that you're gonna set 9 times out of 10, in my experience. So
Yeah. And I think, I mean, just to perhaps wrap up in these last few minutes,
yeah,
I think that all comes down to also, with vision and all that, and preparation and getting everyone to do their jobs, is to do the doable. And Herzog talks about that great anecdote about trying to get ants to
freezing ants.
Yeah, exactly. To go one temperature, you go 1 degree above this temperature,
Right.
they die. You go 1 degree below, they get so like lethargic that they don't
Right.
move.
Yeah.
And then just canceling that idea, because it's like, I'm not going to sit here all day and make my crew wait for these ants to do something that they may never do.
It's a good point. And even
right.
and especially, it's like, we often think of Herzog. I love how he goes out of his way to point out, no, look, I accept no for an answer. He's
Yes,
like, people
yeah.
think I don't accept no for an answer. I definitely accept no for an answer. Of
course, yeah.
And that flexibility is so important, and to have some sense of, okay, we need to redesign this. This is not doable. This may not be safe for my actors. It's clearly vital to have some sense of that. And I even would, to another aspect of this flexibility of doing the doable is to take opportunities, the unexpected, the catastrophes that, they talk about. Make catastrophes part of your story in this lesson. I mean, there could be, as long as it's safe for everybody there, of course, catastrophe can mean many different things. It doesn't have to be a flood like the, example that Herzog gives from McGarry. But to just have that flexibility, to take advantage of what's happening, and that can be that could be a small thing, like an actor has an accident on during a scene, but that brings forth some really extraordinary behavior, or really livens up that scene, or to something substantial, like your set is flooded, and holy crap. You can either run away from that, or you can incorporate that into the story and get some amazing footage. So absolutely, those are important. And he ends. This is a funny one, not a funny one, but it's an interesting ending on this lesson. Herzog talks about fortifying yourself. Right? We've talked about. I mean, it sounds like, and it is, that you're asking a lot of yourself when you're putting yourself in the position of a director. It is a big role.
Yeah.
And I think if you're taking it seriously, you are asking a lot of yourself. And I love that he ends this lesson talking about, well, how do you fortify yourself? And he says, I uses language like, I fortify myself with philosophy, or find refuge in poetry, anchors of safety. I love this language that he uses. And I think that it speaks to, my kind of interpretation of it is how it speaks to how holistically intrinsic every aspect of your humanity is involved in being a director. How grounded you are, how, all like the way you see life, your philosophies of understanding the world around you. When you're a director, it brings forth everything from who you are. You should be bringing everything that you've got. And so to me, like, working on being a better director is every single day. It's not just when I'm on set, right? Every day in my life, if I'm like working with a crew to build a fence in my backyard, I'm like, trying to learn how to be a better leader.
Yes.
I don't know. You know what I mean? Just I think that it's, and
it
I think
infuses
this is
in every single kind of facet of your life.
And so down to like, what's the caliber of literature that you're reading? What's what kind of work are you doing on yourself to exercise your empathetic muscles, to expand your understanding of other people around you and of yourself, certainly. And that to me is, it's in part overwhelming, but it's also extraordinarily challenging in a really wonderful way. So that's my take home from that. I thought it was an extraordinary ending to that lesson.
Yes. Yeah. Totally.
Well, there we go. I think on that note, we'll wrap it up. Well, Cullen, as always, man, thank you so much for a wonderful conversation. I hope that our audience enjoyed it as much as I have. And I look forward to next week's episode where we are going to discuss Lesson 9 of Herzog's Masterclass, Set Rules. So until then, everybody, have a wonderful week. We will see you soon.
Yep. See you guys then.